From Relay FM, this is Connected, episode 410. This show is brought to you by our fine sponsors, Sourcegraph, Clean My Mac X, and Bombus. My name is Mike Hurley, and I would usually be introducing Federico Viticci to the podcast at this moment, but Federico is away today for it is his birthday, so I will now hop over Federico. I'll do the old Italian hop, as they call it, and introduce Stephen Hackett to the podcast.
Hello.
How are you?
It's not my birthday.
Not yet. You got a long time, but it will be eventually.
I think we should send Federico a present.
Okay.
What I would like the Connected listeners to do is to open Twitter, send Federico a tweet with your fourth most used emoji.
Okay.
So I'm going to do this now. So I've got my phone. I'm going to open Tweetbot. I'm going to...
Fourth in what direction?
Okay, so Viticci. So I'm on the emoji keyboard. So under the frequently used, I think it is down. So 1, 2, 3, 4 down.
Oh, no. I'm sending him a sad emoji.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Mine is the melting face one.
He's going to think something bad's happened.
I've sent Federico the melting face emoji.
So I sent him like the disappointed one.
Mm.
You know? I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, poor Federico.
So we'll see what people send him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about that. We have some follow-up. We've heard from a lot of folks with the will, may type autocorrects. Basically, any word that's also a name, iOS wants to capitalize this. And a bunch of feedback was like, I had not noticed this before. Thank you for ruining my phone. Sorry about that.
Uh-huh.
It's not our fault. It's differential privacy.
It's still happening to me.
Oh, yeah. Mine is a real mess.
Yeah. It's very upsetting. Maybe one day it will stop, but I'm not expecting that it will.
We also heard from quite a few people following up on Apple weather. You know, Federico had commented that it doesn't seem super accurate where he is in Rome. And a bunch of people outside the U.S. have basically said the same thing, that Apple weather is incorrect a good bit of the time, especially when compared with a weather service that is more local to them. We heard from several people in Australia where this is true, where their weather services that are, I guess, more finely tuned to what they experience compared to Apple weather, which is trying to do it around the world. And hopefully this is just growing pains. I mean, a lot of this data is available that Apple could buy access to and bring it into their own algorithms and what is building the forecast data and the rain data for Apple weather. But if it is truly abysmal outside of a few select countries, then it's going to be, I think, a rough start for this new service.
I've thought about this. Are we potentially going to be getting ourselves into an Apple Maps kind of situation? Do you think weather is important enough? You remember the whole like iOS 6 Apple Maps disaster?
I mean...
What do you think?
I think it's a little bit different because there are so many other options for weather. And with Maps, basically they were booting Google Maps out of the default slot. So I don't know. I mean, I think people will be upset, especially because in the stock weather app, you can't change the data source like you can in Carrot Weather and a bunch of other like nice third-party weather apps. So it may actually be good for those other weather apps that are more locally focused than Apple's own. But yeah, I'm interested to see how this shakes out over the fall as more people get access to it.
I haven't spent a ton of time using the Apple Weather app because I just don't need it. But like looking at it right now, like it seems pretty comparable to Carrot Weather. And in Carrot Weather, I use dark skies, so I would expect there's at least some kind of data sharing going on there. I think even if it was super bad, I don't think it would be as much of an issue as Apple Maps was. Like I would say that the Apple or like the Maps app on the phone is much more important than a weather app. You know, like just the situations that it can find you in and the bad things it can drop you into. You know, like if you're being directed to the wrong place, if you get yourself into a dangerous situation because the turn-by-turn's not good enough, if like you lose where you are in the street because you're not getting good street direction. Like it's very different to like, it's 25 degrees today rather than 20 degrees, or like it's raining now and I didn't know it was going to rain. You know, like those things I don't think are as important, but hey, we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I do think the weather app is a lot nicer in iOS 16. Like, I'm not going to be switching away from Carrot Weather. It has a lot of features that I really like, but it is way nicer and bringing a lot of information that people just didn't have access to before if they were just using the stock app. I also really like the weather wallpapers they have, and it's one that I wish I could set just the home screen to the weather and use my own lock screen, but Apple doesn't let you do that. The weather ones are married together, but I would totally use like the weather wallpaper just behind my home screen all the time.
Oh, you can use that as a home screen thing. I just assumed it was lock screen only. I hadn't tried that.
You can't use it independently just on the home screen. It's
right.
Lock screen or both.
That's very strange, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think it'd be cool to have that behind your icons all the time, especially when it's like stormy and stuff. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I haven't really played around with that yet. But I'm just looking now, like when did they changed it? But I don't know. It doesn't look like it. That's one of the options.
Mm-hmm.
No, it just lets you choose photos, which is strange.
Zach points out that we are 10 years from the launch of Apple Maps.
Wow.
That makes me feel old. Because we talked about it on the prompt, I'm sure.
Were we?
10 years ago?
Yeah.
No, we started the prompt 9 years ago. So we didn't.
Yeah, I was gonna say that doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
That kind of time frame.
Yeah, the prompt was June 19th, 2013.
Okay.
And that was, because we launched the summer of iOS 7. Because a lot of those early shows, we talked about iOS 7 a lot.
Yeah, man. Summer of iOS 7. That was a good time.
Unless you put it on your carry phone.
No, it was a great time. It was a great time.
It was fun. Remember how thin that text was? It was unusable.
It was great. Helvetica Neue.
Yeah, ultra light.
No.
It's like if a hair, like fell on your phone screen. Like, is that a letter? Is that a hair?
I mean, Johnny knew what he was doing. We just couldn't appreciate his brilliance.
It's true. And now he's gone.
Now he's gone.
I want to update you on some sleep tracking stuff.
Okay.
We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago about Apple's built-in sleep tracking and sort of all the other features they tie to it, like bedtime and wind down and all those things. And we talked about using the watch for sleep tracking. And for the last 2 weeks, I've been doing it. So since we talked about this, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a real run at tracking with the watch. I'm doing the thing where I charge the watch every morning as I get a shower and get ready, and then charge it for a little while at night, usually about dinner time. And that's been no problem. I've got the Series 7. The battery life is totally good enough with just a little bit of charging. You're good to go. And I don't even have it plugged into something that can fast charge it. The current watches can fast charge with a larger power brick. I forget the exact details, but mine is just plugged into a multi-USB thing that has been plugged into forever behind my bed. And that's totally been fine. I've not had any days where I've all of a sudden at 4 p.m. hit the low battery thing, right? So I've been able to manage that really well. But I decided to give Apple's sleep tracking a shot. Now, I am using iOS 16 and watchOS 9, so some of these details may be a little bit different in the public releases. I'm just not sure because I didn't really use them a lot or at all, really, previously to this. So if some of this is a little bit different on your phone, it may just be because I'm on the beta. But I've been able to set Apple sleep tracking up in a way that doesn't drive me bananas. And there are actually some real upsides to using their system. So at first you have the schedule. And I know that for you and Federico in particular, probably him more so than you, that's just kind of a problematic thing because of your schedules and where you work and where you live and all those things. But for me, I've been able to basically set two schedules, one for the weekday and then one for the weekend. And so during the week, every day is basically the same, especially now that school's back in. I'm getting up, getting kids to school, all that stuff. And then on weekends, I don't want to sleep late usually, and so I still have a schedule set for that. What is nice about these schedules is you can customize basically how it works. And so if you're in the alarm tab of the clock app, it shows up there, and you can tell it basically change the next time the phone is going to wake you up. And so say that it's Friday evening and I want to sleep in Saturday past my weekend alarm, I can change that wake up just for the next day.
Now you do adjust that little wheel, right?
Yeah, the UI is strange.
Athena does all of this. She listened to the show and she's like, look, I do all of this. And I'm like, I know, but like, I know who I am as a person, and for me to feel comfortable that I'm going to wake up the next day, I have to set 7 alarms.
Yeah, so I do still have like a backup alarm like 3 minutes later, and I've always done that. I've always had like 2 alarms back to back, but it's not as intrusive as it seems, because you have options to turn off wind down and the sleep reminders. And those were things that sort of the nagging of it always bothered me. I never cared for the wind down, and it can do a bunch of different things. Like I think wind down can like set your like the screen brightness and some other stuff.
Yeah, I actually do use those features.
Interesting.
See, because you don't need to have an alarm in the morning for that. I have the wind down stuff all set up now on a Sleep Focus, the kind of thing attached to it.
Okay.
And it does this weird thing with the color of your screen. Like notification center goes really weird, almost like negative looking. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not using wind down for anything, but I am using a custom lock screen for my sleep mode, my sleep focus. So I have sleep focus turned on now. It's tied to the sleep thing in health, which is really weird. Like I feel like sleep, because it traverses these different features, right? It's a focus mode. It's also in health. Like it's just kind of weird to set up.
It's a focus mode. It's a health app.
Are you getting it?
It's an alarm system. This isn't just one.
Yeah. So I really just changed the lock screen to have some more like nighttime based things. So like sunrise, the next alarm set, Apple Watch battery level, just in case I messed up charging. And
Well, that's interesting.
And I should say, backing up to the battery thing for a second, you can set an option to have notifications about battery charging. So it will remind you if you haven't charged it before bed and it thinks it's going to not make it. And if it's on charging, it will tell you when the watch reaches 100%. So you could grab it off the nightstand. You know, maybe you're still got a stand ring or something to close. So that's all pretty nice. So all in all, this actually has worked for me a lot better than I thought it would. I still think the setup is really too fiddly and there's kind of like a lot of stuff going on. But if you spend some time dialing back the options exactly the way you want them, I think you can get this to a pretty usable state. Now, if I'm out and about late past the bedtime I've set, then yeah, my phone's going to go into the sleep focus mode, but it would do that if that was set on a schedule anyways. And it's very easy to undo that and say, no, I'm not in bed yet. And I'm using Sleep Plus Plus as a third-party app by our friend _ to look at all the data. It's on the health app too. I tried Auto Sleep, and Auto Sleep is beautiful, but ultimately overwhelming to me. It's like, I don't need this fine-grained of information. I kind of just want to know, like, okay, what time was I in bed? What percentage of that was I awake or deep sleep, that sort of thing. And again, Auto Sleep is really nice, and you should definitely check it out if you're looking into this. But for me, Sleep Plus Plus being much simpler worked better for me. And so I've been doing this for a couple of weeks, and I don't know if I've like really learned anything, except that I think I sleep a little better than I thought I did. Maybe it's interesting data to have, and it's been interesting to set it up and see how it all works together on iOS now.
So I haven't done this. _ developer of Sleep Plus Plus. He said that strangely. Plus, he should call it that. Sleep Plus. He texted me and was like, "You just got to do it." And I was like, my issue. Here's the thing I can't get over. I don't want to sleep with my watch on. I don't want to do it. I need to get over it. I think it's too hot in the UK right now. And so, like, I don't want to sleep. Maybe once it cools down a bit over here, I might try it. But right now, the idea of wearing my watch to sleep, I don't like the thought of that at all.
That's taking some getting used to. And I'm using the Sport, whatever the one with the Velcro in it is. I forget all their names. Sport Loop.
Sport Loop.
And changing out the watch band is kind of annoying doing it twice a day. So I've just been wearing the sport loop just all the time, and it's fine. It gets very sweaty if you work out in it, but that is pretty comfortable to sleep in. I wouldn't want to sleep in something more, I guess, more rigid, like some of the rubbery ones, but that definitely takes some getting used to. And the first couple of nights, I was very aware of it. Like anytime I turned over, I felt like I had this huge weight on my wrist, like, oh, let me bring my watch over here. But even in a couple of weeks, that's faded.
I need to, but like at the moment, I'm trying to also get used to falling asleep with AirPods in. So like, I'm doing that. By the way,
a lot going on
that, I'm using original AirPods, not AirPods Pro, to sleep in.
Oh, good.
Because it's more comfortable. And also, like, I know this could be an issue. Like, having earphones that go in your ears is not good for, like, really long time periods. So I've gone with the original AirPods because they also fall out when I actually fall asleep, right? Like, I, like, move my head or whatever when I'm sleeping. I always wake up and they're just, like, in the bed, Mm-hmm. But we had like a pair of AirPods 2 in the house that no one was using, so I've now taken those, and they are now my sleeping headphone.
Do you have trouble like finding them the next morning? Like they get lost?
They're usually just around. They're usually like underneath me somewhere, and it works fine.
I was going to suggest you could like tie a little thing between them, and then I realized that's a terrible idea.
That's a quick way to choke yourself, I was thinking that maybe I wanted to get the new AirPods, because the problem with the original AirPods is the stem is really large and it presses on my ear. So I'm thinking maybe I want just the newer ones. They're the ones you used? No, you use AirPods too, right?
I do.
With the big silly looking ones now to me.
They stick out like a mile.
They look ridiculous now because they look like I could hold them in my fist. That's kind of how it feels to me.
Wolverine for AirPods.
Okay, well, I'm happy am I happy to hear that sleep tracking is good for you? I don't know, because that makes you feel like I got to do it.
I think you should at some point, but I mean, you should. The wearing the watch is a big thing, and so if that's going to be uncomfortable, wait till it cools down.
I'll try it. This
episode of Connected is brought to you by SourceGraph. So you've hired a brilliant new developer. That's awesome, but now you have to get them onboarded. If your company is growing, onboarding new developers is going to become a common occurrence, and it's a big undertaking each time. One of the biggest challenges for new hires is to get up to speed with the projects their new team is already working on. This can be tricky if the code bases your developers are working in are already large. Thankfully, SourceGraph makes it easy to move quickly even in big code bases. Developers know that knowledge is the most useful when it's findable. Centralization is helpful, but given the fact that most companies store knowledge in at least 2 different locations, how do you make knowledge accessible to those who need it? SourceGraph is a code intelligence platform, and it gives developers what they need to drive their own learning over time and in different situations. Teams without SourceGraph rely on asking colleagues or reviewing out-of-date documentation, and those things are cumbersome and time-consuming. But with SourceGraph, every developer can search across millions of repositories to find specific code, saving time for themselves and everyone else. So when questions do come up, you know it's the big stuff that's worth the extra time. SourceGraph was created to make developers' lives easier, and today they work with leading companies across every industry, including 3 out of 5 of the top tech companies. Plus companies like PayPal, Uber, Plaid, GE, Reddit, Atlassian, and more. Visit about.sourcegraph.com to learn more. That's about.sourcegraph.com to find out why some of the biggest tech companies in the world use SourceGraph and to see what it can do for yours. Check out the link in the show notes to let them know that you heard about them from us. Our thanks to SourceGraph for their support of Connected and Relay FM. I want to go back in time a little bit.
Okay.
To 2010. The iPad is new. It's announced. Maybe you got one, but you need to do some real work on it. You don't want to be consuming content, you be making content. And Apple has just the accessory for you, a $69 nice keyboard dock accessory for the iPad. Do you remember this thing?
Of course I remember it.
So I bought one for reasons. For the calendar.
Okay.
And I sent y'all a photo of it, and you were like, yeah, I had one. And I had totally forgotten about this. I'd forgotten that it existed, and then I forgot that you owned one. So will you give us a 12 years in review of the keyboard dock?
You think I still have it?
I mean, no. But you could give us the reason you got it. Maybe.
Well, okay, so
Let's just roll back in time.
I mean, there are a couple of reasons. I mean, the main reason I got it was because I wanted all the accessories for my iPad. You know what I mean? Like, I was just excited about the iPad and I wanted accessories for it. In the same way that I nearly bought when I got my original iPhone, I nearly bought the hands-free thing.
Oh yeah.
You know?
I think it was bad.
And the only reason I didn't buy it was because Coffin Warehouse's system went down, and they couldn't take card payments because too many people were trying to buy phones at the same time, and it was the first time that had ever happened, and they weren't prepared for that, and so I had to pay cash, and I could only get out enough cash from the ATM machine to pay for the iPhone. So I didn't get the hands-free set. But I did get the keyboard dock. And for me, it was just like, well, this seems like a good idea, right? Like, this is the perfect screen to write on. You know, maybe I think back then I fancied that I could maybe be an Apple blogger. You know, I tried that a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, this is the perfect minimal writing machine. You know, that's what all the cool kids wanted. They wanted minimal writing machines, you know? Distraction-free writing environments, all that kind of... all those kind of buzzwords, and I thought I need one of those, and so I bought the keyboard dock. And what I ended up actually using it for, and then I later on kept this going with other products. So like as I moved to probably some form of lightning-based iPad as well, I would get like a Magic Keyboard and put it in front and have a little stand. I used to use this for my podcast notes back in the day. So I would be recording on a Mac, and I never wanted to touch the Mac in case I somehow messed up something with the recording. And I was also, I think, at that time using an 11-inch MacBook Air, so I was terrified of that machine being able to cope with anything I was trying to throw at it at that time. So I would take all of my notes in Markdown in some app of some description, using a keyboard attached to an iPad, and so I would just be taking my notes, and they would just be copy and pasted into a Squarespace field, and that was good to go, you know?
Yeah, I never used one in the time period, I don't think. I mean, I had an original iPad, and I used it with like Apple's Bluetooth keyboard at the time. Eventually, when our friends Tom and Dan, they had their foldy iPad keyboard thing. What was that thing called? The Canopy. Wow. Used one of those for a long time. And then, of course, now Apple's got a wide range of them, and I use some third-party keyboards over the years too. But it's been kind of fun to have this thing around, and like you put your iPad in it. The iPad is in portrait mode because the 30-pin dock connector was on the short side, like the Lightning or USB-C port. It
also
is now.
Makes sense for what it's to be used for.
Mm-hmm. And Apple, with that original iPad, launched iWork for the iPad, and so you had Pages and Keynote and Numbers, and they were like $10 a piece, I think. But yeah, you could open up Pages or some other document, Evernote or whatever you were doing, and type away. So it's kind of been fun to have one around this week. And I mean, it is literally just a keyboard with like a piece of plastic on it. It's very funny, like it's how simple it is. But I think a lot of people probably got a lot of typing done on that thing.
It's kind of funny, really. I was going to ask, do you have an iPad that this works on? And then realized who I'm asking.
Yeah, I got a couple original iPads. They are heavy and thick. So
have you actually been doing a bunch of writing on one of these things?
I wish. Yeah. I should have it up to the side, for my notes. Man. So you had an 11-inch MacBook Air and this. This would have been bigger on the desk than that little laptop.
Probably.
I love it.
The original iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah. With its weird back curved sides. I'm going to just do it again because I can't stop. I'm nearly done with the After Steve book, so I'm not going to have any more stories to tell from it. But one of the things that was interesting in 2015, apparently Apple's design team completely redesigned the iPad, but it was deemed too expensive, and so the design was shelved, right? Like this was one of the things that I spoke about. And I've been fascinated to try and understand what that iPad was.
I wonder if it was the flat side we got 3 years later.
the way that it's told in the book seems to suggest that it was a design that never came, because it talks about making the iPad like significantly lighter. I wonder if they were going to make it out of a different material.
Maybe
we're about to find out.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe in October.
Well, because they haven't redesigned that iPad, right?
Yeah, the original.
It's still the original iPad is still doing its thing out there.
It's very much like the current design of like the regular no adjective iPad is basically the iPad Air. It's that sort of feel, and that was a long time ago. I mean, the iPad Air was what, 2013 or 14, sometime in there. It's been a minute. We should talk about iOS 16 Beta 5. This dropped on Monday, which was fun. I was expecting Beta 5 this week, but I kind of thought, it'll be Tuesday or Wednesday. And then I pick up my phone on a Monday, and there's a text from John. It's like, hey, Beta 5 is out. I was like, wait, what? It's Monday. The big change here on the iPhone, at least, is you can now put the battery percentage, make that visible all the time on a phone with Face ID. So with the iPhone 10, you get the battery indicator on the right-hand side, but the percentage was only available when you swiped down into Control Center, and it's been that way ever since. And back in the day, I had the battery percentage, but with the iPhone 10 and later, I just got used to not having it. But now you can turn it back on, and there's a couple of interesting design decisions, I think. The numbers are pretty big within the little glyph of the battery, and the background stays as if the battery were perfectly fully charged. When you go to low power mode, it turns yellow, and then if you're 10% or below, it turns red, which is...
it 10%? It doesn't go at 20?
Isn't 20% the low battery warning?
No, but if you don't have low power mode on, it will be red.
Maybe 10%, yeah. Yes. Low power mode makes it yellow. Sorry, I misspoke.
So it's 20 at 20%, it will go red unless you turn on your low power mode.
I think so.
That would be consistent with how it is now, and that is what people are now telling us in the Discord.
I think the design is fine. There were a couple of things on Twitter floating around. We'll have them in the show notes of people who sort of designed it thinking, redesigned it thinking that, it should also show like the battery, the range, should the fill of the battery should actually get smaller as the number goes down. But I feel like the number does that for you, and it is most legible with a solid background. So I guess they didn't think they needed to do that. But I just thought it was interesting that people responded so strongly to this design.
I have not seen a concept that I thought looked better than what Apple's come up with. And like, I'm not one to usually say this kind of stuff because I think it can be a bit tiresome. But I think this is one of those situations where like they thought through every option and they've given the one that is the clearest, most legible. Like, I can't imagine Apple's software design team were like, hey, we did this in one. Right? Like, our first idea here was the perfect one. Well, let's not change it. Like, I imagine that they went through all of these. Like, what would it be like if it changed color? What would it be like if it was going the whole way down? Like, all these kinds of... And like the whole... No, I just think it's like they just did it this way. Because I also think for Apple, they've been pretty clear, I think, in with the way that the battery stuff has worked for the last few years. Like, 20 to 80, it's just whatever. When it gets to 20, you're in a problem. Mm-hmm. And like that's how they're showing it to you right now. So like when it gets down low, that's when it should. When you're below 20, that's when it gets the little sliver. I think the rest of the time, it's just like whatever. Just show me the number. Like I don't need to see an accurate percentage fill of the battery, and like I don't. There is no utility in that at all for me. Like the number, as you said, the number shows the thing, and it starts to become messy. Like for a big chunk of the time, you would have like half of the number or a part of the number is a different color to the other part of the number, right?
I think that'd be really distracting having that change all the time.
And so I think this is just the best option because they change the graphic when you go below 20, right? And they show it as the little sliver. Well, because then it's gone past the number.
Yeah.
Right? So like if you had it like anywhere from like 80% all the way down to 20%, there's just going to be a gradient of like what part of the number is in a different. No. This is cleaner. I think they went with the right option here.
Yeah, I do too. What do you think overall about the return of this? I mean, did you use it in the pre-Face ID phones?
Yes.
And are you using it now in the beta?
Yeah, I mean, it turned on its own.
Yeah, it did, which I thought was interesting.
And I've just left it on. I mean, it's fine. Like, now I have the percentage. Because I would quite frequently want to check the percentage of my battery. So I pull down from Control Center, and now I don't need to do that. I think there's a reason they've decided to do it now, but I'm not sure what that reason is. I expect it's related to the iPhone 14 Pro, but I don't know how, right? Like, is this something to do with the always-on display, or is this something to do with the notchless phone design? Like, I think it's one of those things. Like, I don't think that they've just, like, all of a sudden someone's like, oh my gosh, we forgot to put the percentage the whole time. Like, years we forgot to put the percentage there, right?
Since
like
2017 or whatever.
Exactly. And it's not like there's been a crusade over the last 6 months to bring this back. Like, people have wanted this for ages, and people were really upset when it went away. And I feel like I haven't heard anybody talk about this in a long time. So I expect it's related to the iPhone 14 Pro, which is supposed to get both of those features. But I'm just not sure how yet.
I've got it on for now. Casey tweeted something really interesting that it just adds stress. And like, I get that. And I think actually he's like mostly right. I don't know if I'll keep it on forever. Right now I have it on because, again, just my experience in the betas has been is the battery life's pretty bad still. And I find myself keeping a closer eye on my phone battery this summer than I have in a long time. And so I've got it on for now. We'll see if it stays on long term.
I don't believe this, but if Casey was here on this show with me right now, the thing that I would do, because I like to make fun of Casey, likes to poke fun at me. I like to poke fun at Casey, right? What I would say is, buddy, if that's one of the biggest stresses in your life, I want your life.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, of all the things in my life that I could get stressed about, seeing the number of the percentage of my battery is not one of them.
Yeah.
But I do understand where he's coming from, of like, if this is something you see and you're like, oh man, I need to charge your phone, like 90% of the time you actually don't need to charge your phone. Like, your phone's going to be fine. Like you can get these phones have such big batteries now. You're probably good, but like, I do wonder, like, so if you don't see the percentage, do you just never stress about your battery life? Like, I don't know which one is the right way around, but I will say, if you look at a number and you're like, oh man, I need to charge my phone, you should probably turn the feature off, because you are thinking about it too much. For me now, it's just like, honestly, I look at my phone. For me, I'm getting the pleasure of like, man, the battery life on this phone is good, because I just, at the end, I come to the end of the day and I'm still in double-digit percentage numbers. I'm like, yeah.
He did put hot take with fire emoji, so take that with a grain of salt, I guess.
And he also turned off replies. Like, he knew. I was actually pretty proud of him in this moment that Casey turned replies off to that tweet. I was like, he's learning, you know?
This option is not available on the mini phones, I guess, because of the size that it takes up.
That's because the battery's so bad. They don't want people knowing, because you turn the screen on of an iPhone mini and you just watch it start ticking down.
Maybe. One feature I really am glad they've added is a copy and delete option when dealing with screenshots. So we've all done this 1,000 times. Take a screenshot on your phone. You don't want to save it. You're going to copy it out to iMessage or something. And there is a share sheet option in that screenshot UI, but very often I would just copy it because it's just quicker to go into Discord or Slack or wherever and paste it in. But now there's an option for copy and delete. So it puts it on your clipboard, but it does not save the screenshot to Photos. Yep. And this like perfectly fits with the way that I use this feature. I'm sure Apple, when they designed it, it was, people just use the share sheet, but then I got a bunch of screenshots to contend with. This is so good, and my hat is off to whoever got it in here.
Yep, this is exactly one of those things where this feature is made by somebody who uses this feature, right? This is exactly what this tells you. If you're looking for this, by the way, because I was confused, it's under the Done button. So you take the screenshot, you press done, and then you get save to photos, save to quick notes, save to files, copy and delete screenshot. So you got to copy and delete, and then it immediately puts it on your clipboard and then just deletes, and then also therefore gets rid of the thing, like the UI. So that's why for me, even if I was going to put it in the share sheet, this is faster, because then I still have to press done and then delete, or like press the trash can or whatever. So this is actually quicker, because most of the time for me, if I'm sending somebody a screenshot, I also then have something to tell them. So like, and if I'm putting it in Slack, for me, like Slack's whole thing is not awesome. The what do you call it? The share sheet thing.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to take a screenshot, copy it, and then I'll do the copy and delete, then paste it into Slack, add my text, and send it all in once, right? So that feels like good Slack etiquette rather than like sending a screenshot and then following up with the text. So like somebody gets the notification, they open it, it's just a screenshot. It's like, oh God, what's wrong with this?
Yeah.
You know, Steven is typing. It's like, oh no, what did I do now? You know what I mean?
Hello.
Yeah, I think I've said this before. Steven is very bad with this. You know, like when people say like, hey, I need to talk to you, or hi, I got something to say. Steven does this. He's one of those people. It's like, hi, I need to tell you something. Send. And then starts writing the rest of it. Not good. That's toxic. That's your toxic trait. Right? That's your toxic trait, is that.
I was listening to the Waveform podcast this weekend.
Yeah, this is what made me think of it.
Marquez was like, I use different calendar and task apps sometimes. It's like, dude, that's not a toxic trait. That's just being a nerd. Like,
yeah,
and he talked about Remember the Milk, which made me happy.
Oh my God. Yeah, see, where he was coming from was good initially, right? Which is the idea of people who set alarms as tasks.
Yeah.
Right? That's a toxic trait.
That's my mother-in-law.
Using different apps is not a toxic trait at all.
No.
Well, maybe it is, but I do it too, so I'm going to say it isn't.
Yeah. But yeah, using alarms as task management is an abomination.
Yeah, using Due as a task manager is bad enough. The alarms is another step further.
Yeah, I'm not using Due. I've got my medications in the health app.
I use Due for a bunch of things, but I don't use it as like task management. It's
right.
like
It's like take out the
reminders.
trash or
Yes.
pay the light bill. That's a task.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not like prepare for connected. As it.
Right.
I am also, by the way, here again burning Casey.
Wait, does he use Due as his task manager?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he doesn't have as much going on as we do.
I mean, he's got a Due thing that says worry about your battery. You know what I mean? That's as much as he's
think
got going on.
about running Ethernet in my house. Wash the car.
Check the garage door.
Check the garage door. Yeah, that's right.
You know, all the big Casey tasks.
Hug my Synology.
Be one of the best human beings on the planet. You know, like all the typical
I do
Casey
love him.
tasks. So do I. So, but I also love to make fun of him.
Yeah.
You know, that's true love. I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk about this playing live visualizer business on
Yes,
the
amazing.
lock screen? Is it?
Oh, I love it. Oh,
it's so
good.
useless.
But that's why it's so good. Come on. Don't you remember Good Apple, Whimsical Apple? Come on.
Okay, so can you explain what this is for people?
On the now playing live activity, because it's a live activity now, the now playing screen, in the top right-hand corner, there's now just a little visualizer, which is live and accurate-ish to the audio that's playing. Why not have it there? It's fun. What I actually do think there is utility to it, which is it shows you some audio is playing, which I tell you where that's useful. You've got your AirPods in, and it hasn't connected.
Yeah.
And you can now see that there's audio playing somewhere, but maybe it's not where you want it to be. I like it. I just think it's nice. It could be useful maybe, but I just like the way it looks. I think it's like a fun little thing to have.
I'm not sure that it's worth the space.
What else is going to be there? Nothing else is there.
Yeah, that's fine. We can have white space.
But why? When you can put a fun little feature there.
Or you can make the text a little wider so you can see more of your song title.
Who needs that? It will scroll. You'll get it
needs
eventually.
that? Yeah. I do like on this lock screen now playing UI, in the bottom right you have like the AirPlay option, and if you're connected to CarPlay, it shows the CarPlay icon. Like, it is useful to see where audio is going.
Yeah,
because
the problem is the AirPods Pro SF symbol is weird looking. And that's what they replace it with, and I believe it's an SF symbol. It looks very strange.
I mean, it's a good use for that.
It looks like Birdo from Mario 2. And I'm not the first person to say this, because I think people compared the AirPods Pro to Birdo initially. But this, the little symbol looks a lot like Birdo, and it's very weird. So that's what I had to say on the matter. Talking about betas, got beta 5. We're talking about iOS. How is the beta on the Mac?
Basically, mostly unchanged. Stage Manager is fine. It's not buggy like it is on the iPad.
Okay.
The settings app is still garbage and weirdly broken and hard to use. But compatibility wise, I haven't had any issues. I'm running it on my notebook, and it's been fine. The battery life is fine. I do have this issue, and I don't know what beta it is. I tend to blame Ventura, but I don't really have a reason for that. But like my Safari bookmarks get scrambled, like all out of order. It's like 3 times a day. Like I'll be sitting working on my Mac Studio, which is running Monterey, and all of a sudden my bookmark folders are in the wrong order. And that's a little frustrating, but that's iCloud and beta. Like if that's the worst that happens, honestly, I'm doing okay.
I am still very excited about using Stage Manager on the Mac.
I think it makes more sense on the Mac than the iPad just because you have more space. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's different if you're using a 13-inch iPad Pro, but I haven't had one of those in a long time, and I haven't used the beta on one of those. So using a beta on like an 11-inch iPad Pro or Air, the couple of times I've gotten to play with it, it just feels a bit cramped. I don't know. I'm not using it. Like it doesn't really jive with the way that I work, but it's fine.
I find myself like I'm using my Mac, and I have so many apps open, and I'm like, I think I would like to have these in Stage Manager rather than having like 6 spaces. I don't want 6 spaces. I don't want to use spaces at all anymore now that Stage Manager is a thing that exists. So I'm excited about it.
This episode of Connected is made possible by Clean My Mac X. You want to make sure that you can trust your Mac. It's a crucial tool for work, education, and life. MacPaw is on a mission to help machines help you, which is why they developed Clean My Mac X, the ideal decluttering app for the Mac that can help keep it in tip-top shape. Clean My Mac X includes 49 tools to find and delete invisible computer junk. It helps tune up your Mac so it runs at maximum speed. Plus, it organizes disk space, showing you large hidden folders, meaning you can free up tons of space on your Mac so you don't run into those pesky disk is full issues that sometimes you run into, especially on notebooks. It's a real pain. Clean My Mac X also fights Mac-specific malware and adware, protecting your computer, and it prevents a Mac from cluttering, lagging, and slowing down. Clean My Mac X is notarized by Apple and is available in the Mac App Store, so it's been checked for security, and it really stands out in design. Last year, it was honored with the Red Dot Award, a UX Design Award, and has become a Webby Award nominee this year. Despite the war in MacPaw's home country of Ukraine, the team has worked hard to make sure there are no disruptions in the support and development of Clean My Mac X. The product is stable, safe, and secure. Get Clean My Mac X today with 5% off at macpaw.app/connected. That discount is only valid for 2 weeks, so go check it out. macpaw.app/connected for 5% off. Our thanks to Clean My Mac X for their support of the show and Relay FM.
1Password 8 is now available for iOS.
What did it eat?
Actually, nothing, which is kind of interesting. What it didn't eat was 1Password 7.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. I wasn't setting you up, but I'm glad you took it.
Because 1Password 7 is still on the App Store. 1Password 8 is its own app. And I find that strange to start with. I haven't looked into this. I should have. No, I just said it. I don't know if they've said why they're doing this. I mean, I can imagine why, because it's in a different direction, and maybe they don't want to deal with people getting upset about a forced update. If it's all different, it works different, looks different. But I don't know what their plan is for moving people over.
So 7 also still supports some syncing options that they're not using moving forward.
Okay. Okay.
And so they did this on the Mac as well. 8 is a separate SKU than 7 because some people are still using those older sync methods
That's cool.
and aren't ready to move.
I mean, I expect at some point then there's going to be 1Password and 1Password Classic or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like they're going to drop the numbers at some point. I don't know when the numbers need to be there.
I think this is the best way to go about it, even if it means
Yes.
that the adoption of the new version is slower. I mean, 1Password on the 8, 1Password 8 on the Mac in particular came with a lot of conversation about it being Electron and being so different.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they learned from that. And I'll say this: I mean, 1Password 8, I was on the beta for a long time. The final version, there are some bugs in it in terms of layout and UI stuff, which we'll get to in a second. But overall, I really like it, and I really
On the
like
phone, you mean?
on the phone. Yeah,
Okay.
it's fine on the Mac.
Sorry, I just wanted to check. I wasn't sure which one you meant.
Yeah, sorry, it's fine on the Mac, but on the phone, I really like it, mainly for the customization. So
Yeah.
on the sort of main screen of the app, you can hide and add sections, and you can rearrange them. So they have something that's really cool called pinned fields. So it's just like the small UI at the top for anything you pin. And so you can pin like your Twitter password and it just shows up as a little item at the top and you tap on it and copy it. That's really cool. I would imagine if you have like a 2-factor authentication number you need often or something, but you can basically pin anything from any entry up there at the top, which is really cool. And then you have, favorites, which has been part of 1Password forever. But then you have some smart lists. So recently created, recently used, recently modified, and frequently used. And I've got a couple of these turned on because, very often I will change a password or a detail or create something new, and then I'll need it on my phone. Like maybe I'm setting it up on the Mac for some new app I'm trying, and then I need it on the phone. Like having those there with quick access is actually pretty cool. And I think this customizable main screen is a great addition to this app. I'm really digging that direction.
The frequent recent thing is smart because I set up a bunch of favorites once upon a time and then stopped needing that, or like the list changed and I was lazy and didn't change it. And so like the favorites part for me is kind of a bit like old and busted, and it's just like a bunch of incomplete stuff in here that I also don't really use because I just tend to search for things. But this is just like a great way to surface stuff. I need you to tell me how I pin things.
Yeah, so like, find a login or something, and then you long press on some part of it.
Pin to home.
So I'm looking at like my Apple ID password, and then there's a pin to home, and then it will show up there.
Oh, so one-time passwords is where this is best.
I think so.
Because just pinning a password seems... I mean, I guess you could do it. I'm going to think about what I'm...
Yeah, if it's something you need often. But I think it's pretty
I wouldn't
clever.
mind something like this on the Mac.
And you can set it where if you tap on the pinned item, it copies, or you can set it where it shows it in large type. So say that you have a password you enter manually a bunch, you could have it on there and tap it to get it in large type so you can type it on your other device. It's well thought through, and it's all using Swift UI, and some of the visual weirdness I've seen, I think, is just because it's Swift UI. It's using Rust for the backend like they do on the Mac and Windows and Android, but Swift UI as the UI choice. And I find that interesting because the Mac, they went with Electron, and I don't know the reason why they split that. It feels like that those decisions were not made at the same time. I don't know that. I find the using Swift UI for it is just really interesting because it is a big complicated app, and it does give it a nice modern look, but obviously different from where they went on the desktop.
Yeah, the thing that I am struck by, which is a surprise to me, is now 1Password on the phone and the Mac look more different than they have ever looked.
Yeah.
That was not what I was expecting. And now I'm surprised that there is functionality in the iPhone version that's not in the Mac version.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there are some similarities, but they're also different, if that makes sense, which I find peculiar. That wasn't what I was expecting. Like, I can't customize all the stuff here on the Mac app like I can on the phone, right? I don't got any of those features, which is odd. So yeah, I've noticed some buggy things. Like we're talking about that customization field, like when you go to the home screen and you customize, and there are like these little drag things. They work for me, like the actual dragging works for me like 10% of the time where I try and drag something. Like most of the time, it just doesn't end up doing the dragging. What I will say though, this is the least Swift UI looking Swift UI app that I've used. It just doesn't look like other apps, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just I feel like a lot of apps that I've used in SwiftUI I maybe would be able to tell, but this one not. And what that maybe tells me is I'm using loads of SwiftUI apps and I don't even know about it, because you can get I think what it is what one of SwiftUI's big benefits, right, is that you can get up and going pretty quickly. And so I think a lot of developers where maybe they just want to get up and going from a design perspective, they use a lot more system control.
Yeah.
And clearly you don't need to use a lot of system control. Because I guess similarly, actually, now I'm saying it, WidgetSmith doesn't look like any other app that I use either. And I know that Dave's using SwiftUI for that. So I guess there is stuff that you can do here which isn't necessarily just using the out-of-the-box stuff.
Right.
I'm upset that they do not offer a dark mode icon.
It's no.
A silver icon. I was using the dark icon and then I just have a silver icon. And I would like a dark icon back, please. Because now the icon on my home screen has changed. And I don't want that to happen. But it's happened.
Bring it back. 1Password.
Yeah, I would say overall I'm happy with this. Because I would say for me, like, the Mac app has been great. Like 1Password 8 on the Mac, it's been great. I don't have any problems with it.
No, I mean, I ran the beta of that too, and they made a lot of progress. And I've said this before on this show and on MPU, where 1Password is a current sponsor, but that doesn't make any difference to me in terms of the way we cover it. In terms of like the religious fight over Electron on the Mac, if it's good or bad for the platform, I just find uninteresting. Like, if these technical decisions work well for the companies and it means that 1Password gets updates everywhere more quickly and it still works with all my browsers and it still has, the little menu bar app, and now they even do things like one of my favorite things on the Mac is the full, like, basically fill a password anywhere where it like screen reads and figures out what the fields are. I love that thing. And it is awesome to log into something like the Mac App Store, where I feel like I'm logged out every 3 days, to just use 1Password there without copying and pasting. And so I've got no problems with these directions because the feature set continues to get better. And
I like the idea of that feature. My problem is it does not work 100% of the time.
Yeah, it's not flawless for sure.
And so because of that, I don't use it. Because I never know if I'm like going to try and do the thing and then it doesn't work and then I have to copy the password anyway.
That's fair.
So I just bring up the new little mini thing, which I actually quite like. I just press like command and backslash and it just pops it up. And then you can navigate that with the keyboard really easily. So I just do that.
So that's, what's 1Password 8? I'm digging it on the phone. I'd like to see some of the customization come to the Mac. I think that'd be really cool, especially the pinned things. That is super awesome.
They've unified the back end, split the front end, and in the same position again.
I bet these features end up in the desktop app at some point.
I hope so. Amazon is buying iRobot for $1.7 billion.
Look, Jeff Bezos needs a lot of Roombas for that big house of his.
Yeah, iRobot make Roomba and the mop one that I forget the name of. Because
Mopbot.
Mopbot. We'll call it Mopbot. I don't think it's called that. We can find out the answer though. These things are available to us. They're called Brava. I don't know why it's not just called the Roomba Mop. Like, I don't know why they needed a second brand. They make handheld vacuums. I did not know that.
Every time I see the iRobot branding, I'm like, wait, is that the Roomba company? It's just, they have air purifiers now.
It is wild to me that they kept that name going as long as they did.
Well, they leaned into it.
Right, that they didn't just rebrand the company to just Roomba.
Yeah, but it's like the iRobot OS is like the software they built for them. They've gone all in.
nobody knows the brand, right?
No,
People
I just
know
think
what
about the
Roomba
movie.
is. Yeah, and it's also a book, right?
Yeah.
It's a movie's based on a book. So yeah, Amazon's buying them for $1.7 billion. The CEO is going to stay on and run the company. So it's going to be, I expect, will just be called iRobot, or maybe Amazon make them change the name to Roomba. But same as Ring, same as Eero. These are companies that have continued to run somewhat independently, or at least, but I'm sure like Eero, you'll be able to sign in with your Amazon account at some point, which just makes sense. This is a time, people keep saying, I just listened to Ben Thompson say this today, this is the time for acquisitions because stock prices are down. So if you're a company with cash, you can just buy up the companies you've had your eye on for a while. And so that's happening. Here's my hope for this. My hope is that Roombas get cheaper now, because Roombas are expensive. Like, I'm always surprised at how expensive the top of the line Roombas are. They are expensive products. My hope now is that with Amazon, they might drive the prices down a bit, because that's Amazon's thing. They sell their own hardware stuff really cheaply, right? Like,
Right.
compared to other products of that class, the Echoes are cheap products.
Yeah, they're subsidizing it with everything else they do, right?
And people point out in the Discord that like but Eros weren't very expensive for their product class. Roombas are expensive products, so I would hope that would be the case. But also, I think like anybody that gets a Roomba, I love Roomba.
Yep.
Like, the
Me
products
too.
are fantastic, and now this means that the company won't go out of business, which I'm really happy about, right? Because who knows, right? And now they're less likely to go out of business because now Amazon has to go out of business, and if Amazon goes out of business, we've got a lot more problems.
Yeah, the internet doesn't work anymore.
Than our robots not working. Yeah, exactly. So I'm pretty jazzed about it, to be honest.
The CEO sticking around is very similar to how other things have gone. So when they bought Eero, which was rumored to be like $98 million, they paid basically nothing for Eero. But Eero was apparently kind of in bad financial straits at the time. Their CEO and most of their leadership team stayed on. And when they bought Ring for a similar amount of money to them buying iRobot, the CEO and leadership stuck around. This seems to be how Amazon likes doing this, where like these companies, from what I've heard of interviews of the Eero guy, whose name escapes me, they basically still operate like companies. They're within Amazon, and then they can work and navigate the Amazon infrastructure, but they're still doing their own thing, their own product development. And honestly, I think that has worked pretty well for Amazon, especially when you contrast it to like what happened with Google and Nest, right? Where like Nest was independent within Google, and then it was an Alphabet, and they folded it in, and everybody left, and it was like they've run into the ground.
And then they unfolded it again, and then did nothing with it, right? Because it's its own brand again, isn't it? Nest by Google.
I think so, but it's interesting, and there's a lot of reasons Amazon would want to do this. I think. I mean, it's another kind of smart home type business, and they can integrate it with their assistant and everything. There's already a skill for the Echo line where you can ask the tube to run your vacuum, but there's obviously concerns here from some people about what does this mean from like a privacy perspective, because Roombas, at least the new, sort of higher end ones, mine's a couple years old now, but it was like the nicest one when it was for sale new. It does map my house, and if you go in the app, like, I mean, the map kind of looks like it was drawn by a 4-year-old, but like it kind of gets, what my house looks like. Quite frankly, like, I don't see, like, what's Amazon going to do with that compared to what they already know about me in terms of purchasing and my purchasing at Whole Foods. And, and I mean, again, like, I'm a guy with Ring cameras and an Eero system. Like, I'm fine with Amazon products in my household. If you're not, and that's where you've drawn your line, that's fine.
I will just ask the question flatly. You're being nice. What do you think Amazon want the layout of your home for? What do you think they're going to do?
Yeah, I don't know. That's yeah.
Amazon don't care about the shape of your living room. You give them everything already. You buy from them,
Yeah.
right? That's all they want. They just want to know what products you buy. They don't want to know what dust is under your sofa. Like, they don't care about that. Like, you know, and I know that they do the Ring thing with police, but like, that's a different thing, right? I'm not talking about
That's bad news, right? And Ring lacked end-to-end encryption and some others. Like, Ring's been problematic, and I went into the ecosystem knowing all that. And you can change all your settings to make that basically better. And you know, if I don't know how much the Roomba can see, right, in terms of like its sensors or like a camera, and I get that, right? And everyone has to make their own decisions.
Every technology company gives information to police when compelled to. Like, none of them don't do that.
Yeah,
They
well,
all
it's
do
the
it.
law.
Yes. So, like, maybe Ring do it more than others. Like, sure. But you cannot buy technology assuming that won't happen to you. It can all happen to you. It might be different, the information that they give, but like, is your security camera less or more risky for you than your iMessages? Because if you use iCloud backup, then your iMessage information can be given to the police. So like, you know, there are ways to protect you from all this stuff, but then you can't benefit from a lot of the things that you would like to benefit from, like backing up your phone, right? Good luck backing up your phone without iCloud. So like, I get, like, it is healthy to be skeptical, but like, just to naturally assume that every company or like every company that's not Apple is going to give your information away to the government, like Apple do it as well. So let's just put all of our cards on the table here.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I'm not going to be taping over the the sensors on my Roomba. I'm going to continue to use it. You know, for me, it's like where my line sort of fell in this is that, I mean, we use HomePods in the house mostly because I switched everything to HomeKit, worked a little bit better, and the HomePod, like the one big HomePod I have left that's still alive, is in the kitchen and it sounds incredible, and we listen to a lot of music on it. You know, for me, like, I wouldn't put one of these smart home things with a camera like in the bedroom, right? Like, my wife would not want that. I don't want that. So I would not have like an Echo Show. I would not have that in the bedroom. But my iPhone sits on my nightstand and it's got 4 cameras on it, right? Like, so there's none of these lines are perfect, and it's really about kind of wherever you fall and how you think about these things. For me, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about iRobot being run to the ground. Like, Amazon, I think, has done a pretty good job with these other purchases. There have been hiccups, like, no doubt. But if the alternative was them going away or being bought by Google, which has a bad history of managing these companies, like, I'm pretty okay with this as a long time Roomba customer.
As I said before, if it keeps Roomba around and now maybe does something about trying to make things cheaper and or integrate with other products that I own in a better way, like, I'm into it personally.
This episode of Connected is made possible by Bombas. I'm wearing some Bombas socks right now. They're super comfortable. They're soft. They have a cozy feel. But they're also great for working out because they're made with this like sweat wicking yarn. So if I go out for a walk or a run or a bike ride, I'm comfortable with that too. Bombas has this really cool mission to make the most comfortable clothes ever, and they match every item sold with an equal item donated. So when you buy something from Bombas, you're also giving to someone in need. Bombas designed their socks, shirts, and underwear to be the clothes you can't wait to put on every day. Everything they make is soft, seamless, tagless, which I really appreciate. I hate tags that poke you and scratch you, and everything is cozy. Your feet stay cool in their socks when the rest of you works up a sweat, and their no-show socks are designed for comfort while being engineered to never fall down, so you can let your ankles be free. Their t-shirts are made with thoughtful design features like invisible seams, soft fabrics, and the perfect weight so they hang just right. And Bombas underwear is breathable, fits well, and has a barely there feel. My entire sock drawer is Bombas. I've had them for years. I love how well they hold up over time. We've all had socks that, you know, after a year, they start falling apart or they start ooching down. And my Bombas have held up super well. I love them. I wear them every single day. Socks, underwear, and t-shirts are the 3 most requested clothing items at homeless shelters, and that's why Bombas donates one of them for every item you buy. So far, Bombas customers have helped donate over 50 million items of essential clothing. I absolutely love that. So you can get 20% off your first purchase. Go to bombas.com/connected. That's BOMBAS. Bombas.com/connected for 20% off your first purchase. Our thanks to Bombas for their support of the show and Relay FM. I've got a camera I want to talk to you about, Mike.
Okay. Is it a Ring? Is it?
Yeah.
Is it a
I got
Ring
a Roomba,
camera?
and I put a Ring camera on top of it, and it just drives around.
What? Oh, that's double trouble, baby. You
Double
wanna
trouble.
watch out.
Yeah. There's a button that goes right to the Department of Justice. They've had a busy week. I picked up an Opal C1.
Okay.
This has been, around. Some tech YouTubers have talked about it. It's effectively, it's a chunky webcam, and it has a big old Sony sensor, a 4K sensor that my understanding is very similar to what's in something like the RX100 line. It's not a sensor that's that big, I don't think, but it is sort of similar. Incredible low light, a really fast f1.8 lens. It's a very nice webcam, as it should be for $300. But you can reserve and get in line, and I got my invite to purchase one a couple weeks ago, and I did. And now I'm here to report on it.
So I had an invite come through a couple of weeks ago as well, and I decided not to do it.
Okay.
Because it's $300. And I thought to myself, I don't want it for $300. Now, I will say at the time, I didn't need a webcam.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I've got the MacBook Pro plugged into an LG display.
Yeah.
And I don't have a webcam. So now if I ever need to do video while I've got my podcast gear, I need to take things apart, which is that's fine. Like I can just go take my Brio from my PC and plug it in. It will be easy enough to do. Mm-hmm. But because I just got the studio display, so I was like, well, I don't need the camera anymore because I have the iMac, but now I don't have that.
Right.
But I don't. I think I'm going to take that $300 and I'm going to put it into a pot to save up for another studio display for my recording desk.
Yeah.
Because I have a 32-inch LG in front of me right now, which is too big.
Yeah,
it's too
ridiculous.
big. But I'm just reusing the monitor that I had been using previously for my other thing. And good point from Pastor Boy. Continuity camera was the other thing I wanted to try out. I'm not going to bother getting camo, or I'm not going to go into doing that right now because continuity camera is just around the corner at this point. And I have a webcam here at the studio that I use for when I stream. But yeah, I am still intrigued though. I watched a friend of the show, David Sparks, did a video about one, which I assume maybe been another reason what pushed you to it. He seemed pretty jazzed about it.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. So I was using the LG Brio, which is a 4K, and I had the version with a little magnetic mount for the Pro display. Mm-hmm. This is definitely better than that camera, but I'm not sure it's worth $300 unless you make your living on doing a bunch of stuff with your webcam, right? Mm-hmm. It has, physical features. It is USB-C, which is really nice, and it comes with a little mount with little legs, so you can kind of, make it squeeze the top of your display, and it's got a pivot so you can angle it down because, ergonomically the top of your screen should be above your eye line, and then it's sort of looking at the top of your head, so you can angle it down. And it has a magnetic lens cover and an LED when it's active. So when it's active, and you can actually put a physical lens cap over it when you're not using it. And it's super smart. So if you take the lens cap off, the camera wakes up. If you put it on, the camera goes to sleep. But on the software side, it's a little bit weird. They have a Mac menu bar app that runs all the time, and it gives you control over what the camera's doing. And so you have a bunch of camera settings, so you can lock the focus. You can record just within their app if you just need to do like a little something. You can change the bokeh, so you can like really kind of blow out the background. Again, it goes down to the bokeh goes down to f0.7. You can add a logo. You can zoom. It has face lock, which is like center stage, where it sort of follows your head around, which is kind of funny. And there's also some audio settings because it does have microphones, and the microphones do sound really good. It's the best sounding webcam I've ever had. But you got to have that Mac app. It does install a system extension, so you've got to go into system settings or system preferences and allow that, which is fine.
Do you got to do the rebooting?
No, that only Audio Hidec's the only one that has to do that I've ever come across.
Is that because it's the first time? It's the first time, right? Because you have to go in and say reduce system security, and then they'll all be fine after that, I think.
Maybe. I didn't have to reboot or anything. The software's fine. I mean, it's just like another thing in my menu bar, but I have a million things in my menu bar, so it's fine.
And you have a 400-inch wide display.
32 inches, yeah.
Okay. So you got...
Same as you.
I love how a minute ago I said 32 was too big, and you agreed with me.
I have a much bigger desk than you do. And I don't have a second monitor next to it like you do.
That's true. Well, this desk is small. I
beautiful.
I have another desk. That's a big desk. Yeah, it's covered in your face. This is more your desk than mine.
You could use this as a more standalone thing. Like it doesn't have to be clipped to the top of your display. The bottom has a quarter 20 on it, so you can screw it onto a plate to put on a tripod or something. And it does get warm after a little bit, which is kind of weird. But even in like 1080 mode, which I have mine in because Zoom and some other applications sort of balk if you have it set to the full 4K. But it's really nice. No one needs a $300 webcam, including me. But if you say that you want to start streaming or something, like if it was between this or like something like an RX 100 or something, and then you're going to like pipe it into your computer, I think I would look at this first just because it has a lot of stuff in software and is simpler to manage than like setting up a quote unquote real camera as your webcam.
Did you use it to take your new profile photo?
No, that was with my Sony camera.
Okay.
My big one. Some people had autofocus issues.
Okay.
Mine seems okay. Maybe that's a software thing. The software is definitely like in beta. And so it says beta on it. Like it's not even widely available to purchase. Like this is a very young new product. So I have not had the autofocus issues, but if you do, my hope is that they could fix that in the software side.
Yeah, I think some of the invite stuff is hype.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think that it can come back to bite you because if I would have just been able to give them my money, I would have one of these.
It's a good way to hide, I don't know if they're doing this, but it's a good way to hide supply chain issues.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
sign up for an invite to buy it. We're making them as fast as we can.
I mean, that might have been part of the reason that they did it because this was a post-pandemic product. Like,
yeah,
the pandemic changed what people wanted from their cameras.
Right.
People were upset with their laptop cameras, and so this company sprang up and took a lot of investment from a lot of interesting people and developed a thing. It's the same. I know you mentioned it's a Sony thing. Is it true that this is the same sensor that's in the Pixel phones? I heard that once, but I don't know if that's true.
Oh, that may have been what I was thinking when I said the RX 100. I think it may be.
I think it's a Sony sensor, but it was used in the Google Pixel.
Yeah,
I believe. Like it's actually a smartphone sensor, which surprised me.
Yes, the Verge in their review, which I'll put in the show notes, says that it is the same sensor that was in the first Pixel.
Because that was when I found that out, that actually turned me off it. The way this thing looks makes it look like it's got like some serious hardware in it, But but really, it is just a smartphone, and I already have one of those.
Mm-hmm.
These were like some of the things that led to me thinking that when my time came around, I was like, no, I'm good. And like now with continuity camera, now I'm like, no, I'm really good. Like I'm gonna have I'm feel pretty confident that the iPhone video camera will produce better image quality
probably
than this will.
Yeah, it's not as good as the iPhone, but it's definitely the best non-real camera I've ever hooked up to my to my computer.
Sure. It's like the best webcam you can get.
Yeah, but
right?
most people, including me, don't actually need it. And but I think it's interesting. I mean, mainly because of what you said, right? This came out of the world that we were all thrust into in 2020. Like, and it was really hard to buy a webcam. Like, I remember my brother, like everyone else, was working from home all of a sudden and was looking for a webcam, and there just weren't any. And I had an extra, so I gave him an old LG one that I had, or somebody, I don't know. But it's this is a meeting, the need that people have, and it's taken them a couple of years to get it out. Like you would imagine anything else that's hardware and software. But it is really impressive. Is it worth it for most people? Again, no. But if you have this need, I think pretty easily it's the nicest, best thing on the market for it. And it does look cool.
I guess the flexibility is good, right? Like, and I have been a person who struggled with flexibility in cameras, right? Like, I've been moaning about this for months, about not being able to change the refresh rate. Can you do that here? Like 50 or 60 hertz, can you do that? Or does it have anti-flickering options in their software?
I don't see anything in here about the refresh rate, but I would assume it was okay with that.
Sometimes it's just called anti-flickering or like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't see anything about that either. There are some filters you can apply if you want to, like highlights and shadows and stuff. You can manually set a bunch of stuff like white balance and exposure. I have all that to be automatic. And there's also gesture control. So you can like do a peace sign and the video toggles on and off, or
yeah, I've seen that. That's
draw
cool.
on the video. Like, that's all fine, but mostly kind of silly, I think. I don't know how useful that is in real life. Oh,
like you can put your logo on it too, or you can like put a little logo on there.
Update.
If you want to.
It's called anti-banding, and there's 3 settings: 50 hertz, 60 hertz, and auto.
There you go.
So this would work for you.
Big tick for me. But the iPhone camera doesn't do it.
Yeah, but then you're like taking your phone out and like putting in a mount. Like, there's
But
something to be said about having something that's dedicated.
Agree with you, and also as a pop socket user, I don't even know if any of these mounts will work for me. So like that might be like a whole thing that I need to work out later on. But I could probably just use a Glyph from Studio Neat. But I don't very frequently need a webcam where I record podcasts. Like, that's the only place for me where
just because of your setup.
Just because I would usually take video calls in front of the studio display, which does now work properly. I don't know why. My studio, sometimes I go through these phases where sometimes the studio display will accurately change to what I need it to, so it stops banding or flickering, but sometimes it doesn't.
Well, they had an update for it just last week. Maybe that took care of it.
I haven't run that update yet. So I'm confident that update will break it, because that's happened before in the past. So.
Probably. So that's the Opal C1. It's really expensive, but really nice.
Like so many things.
If you want to find links to stuff we spoke about, head on over to the website, relay.fm/connected/410. Whew, numbers are getting big. You can, from that page, you can send us feedback or follow up. There's an email link there. There's also buttons at the top of the page to join and get Connected Pro, which is a longer ad-free version of the show each and every week. You can find us all on Twitter. You can find Mike there as IMYKE, and Mike hosts a bunch of stuff here on Relay FM. You can find me on Twitter as ISMH, and I write over at 512pixels.net. Federico's the big birthday boy today. So again, go over to Twitter and send him a tweet using your 4th most used emoji. We've already gotten a text from him asking what's going on. So thank you, live listeners. Thank you for helping us out with that. And he'll be back next week. I'd like to thank our sponsors, SourceGraph, Clean My Mac X, and Bombas. And until next time, Mike, say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.